What's up, fam, and welcome to another episode of the Wanderlust Wealth Show. Today, we have a great guest. His name is Cassidy Warren. He started off investing in real estate by just renting out a bedroom in his house on Airbnb for $35 a night to now having a $13 million real estate portfolio. He is a short-term rental investor, a boutique hotel investor, and the greatest thing is he used to be an engineer. It's crazy. It's like all of these engineers are wanting to get into real estate investing, and it just makes sense. Now, you are going to want to listen to this episode because Cassidy drops so many gems about, especially if you're currently working a corporate job, how to really accelerate your money, like the velocity of money, how to accelerate it as fast as possible with what you have right now so that it just multiplies for itself time and time and time again. So take a listen to the episode and let me know what you think. So Cassidy, you used to be an engineer as well, and it's just so funny because this seems to be a theme for engineers going into real estate investing.
Yeah, I mean, I meet a lot of former engineers that get into real estate investing. I think part of it is like you can look at the numbers and it generally makes sense for
Yeah.
people. It's not a starting a new flashy business selling an e-com product online. It's a physical asset that you can put numbers around and generally trust yourself enough to make it work.
Well, and it's such an like concrete asset as well. And people have been doing it for so many years, right? It's like, well, if other people can do it, I went through engineering. Like, how hard could it be?
Yeah, I think the hardest thing for me to grasp, and it wasn't until we filed our first years of tax returns, was the additional tax benefits that you get.
Mm-hmm.
And it was also what was stopping us from investing in like long-term rentals because you start doing the math on down payment and cash flow on a long-term rental. And it just didn't really make sense. Also, it just didn't light me up for
Yeah.
doing long-term rentals. Like I didn't want to be a landlord. I didn't want to just, if we had to do renovations, I didn't want it to be white cabinets, gray floors, all that stuff. And so that's why short-term rentals were such a great thing. And then once you see the tax benefits on your tax return from depreciation, then that's when it really started clicking. And you can't really understand. I haven't met very many people that truly understood depreciation and cost segregation and tax benefits until they actually took the step to go buy something and do it. You can't until you get the refund or you get to keep all your money, even as a W-2 employee, even as an engineer currently. If you're an engineer currently, you get to keep more of your money or you get a giant refund because you bought a cash flowing asset.
Yeah.
It's wild.
No, literally, I remember like the first year I bought even my duplex, I was like, how did I like make money back? I was just like,
Yeah.
and this was the year that I made the most amount of money, right? Because I had money coming in terms of cash flow from my rental property. I was living for free and I was working my 6-figure job. And I was just like, hold up, what is happening right now?
Yeah, and honestly, it's one of the reasons I tell people that you don't need to quit your job if you don't want to. Like a lot of people think, "Oh, I want to go be a full-time real estate investor." And I say, "Why? Do you need to be? What's your
Truly.
rush?" Or use your high-paying W-2 job, your high-paying engineering job as ultimate leverage to go buy as many short-term rentals or pieces of real estate as you can. And I always recommend short-term rentals for anyone that has a W-2 that is
Mhm.
still an engineer, software developer, anyone that has a regular job where you get paid by somebody else with a paycheck every month. Go buy a short-term rental because it's really the only way that you can take advantage of those tax benefits like cost segregation, depreciation. If you buy a long-term rental, usually if you make over 150K, you can't get it. Like that's
Yeah.
the rule. If you go buy an apartment building through a syndication, you're not going to get as much, right? The highest leverage activity for most people is to keep their job as long as possible so that they can continue to qualify for the loans or they can get DSCR and they continue to get tax benefits because your biggest bill every year is your tax bill.
Yep.
We forget that, especially when we're in our corporate jobs, because it just comes out of the check every month.
Right. You don't see it.
You don't see it. But if you add that money up, if you're an engineer making 150K, let's say you're making 200K, you're paying about, I would say 40%. And so you're getting, what is that? 80 grand, an $80,000 bill
Which is crazy.
every crazy. If you went and bought one short-term rental, you could get all of that back and more on one purchase. And then you're buying and owning an asset that is making you money every month and is growing in value every month and every year.
Hey girl, if you've been dreaming about building generational wealth and living life on your own terms, this one's for you. Now, 5 years ago, I was right where you are, okay? Burnt out, working a corporate engineering job, grinding with no real freedom in sight. Then I bought my first investment property, learned how to live for free, and started making money in my sleep. That one decision changed absolutely everything. I stopped relying on my 9 to 5 and eventually walked away from it for good. And trust me, I don't regret it. Now I'm on a mission to help other people do the same, which is exactly why I created Wanderlust Wealth Academy, a transformational program and community where I teach you how to buy your first or next investment property and live for free in 2025. Now, this community is for three kinds of people, okay? If you are stuck in a job that you don't love, secretly dreaming of more freedom, more travel, and more passive income, and you know you don't want to be climbing the corporate ladder for the next 10, 20, 30 years, this is for you. Or maybe you're a digital nomad or a travel girly who just wants to build wealth and create stability without giving up your freedom. Or maybe you're a business owner or high earning corporate baddie who just sees the market volatility and knows that it's time to diversify your income. If any of those sound like you and you're making at least $75,000, ideally six figures, and have a minimum of $10,000 that you can put towards a property, then go ahead and apply for the Wanderlust Wealth Academy. Now, this is going to be a completely free call to see if you're a good fit for us and also for us to see if we're a good fit for you. You can go ahead and apply at oliviatati.com/apply WWA. That's oliviatati.com/apply WWA. Or you can just go ahead and click the link in the show notes. Now, spots are limited. We only take a few new folks a month. So make sure to apply now before there are no spots left, and they go pretty quick. Because my girl, freedom is so much closer than you think. 100%. And the big thing too is like, I always say if I didn't 100% truly hate my job, like I was depressed. I was literally having to take medication. If you know me, if you see my backdrop, I'm a fun, bubbly, excited person. And I was like my soul was lost. So that was the only reason why I quit. But even then, I was like, oh, maybe I go find like a tech job or something like that. And I couldn't find one at the time because the housing, or not the housing, but the job market sucked. And also, I just kind of knew deep down I was meant to be a full time entrepreneur. But for most people, like, you kind of know you weren't meant to be a full time entrepreneur, like you maybe never really wanted to. And also, just being a full time entrepreneur in general, it does have so many more swings in terms of ups and downs. I personally don't mind them. Like, I kind of like the excitement because it like lights a fire under my butt. But it's definitely not for everyone. And the easiest way, 100%, is to keep your corporate job and just keep stacking it so that you get to a place where if you want to quit, you can. If you want to retire, you can. You already have all this cash flow coming in, all these benefits coming in and you're also saving more every single month. So it's so much easier to hit your financial freedom number.
Yeah, it's hard to understand if you haven't been able to have additional income coming in every month, whether it's variable or not. Even if, let's say, you average it out over 12 months, if you have an extra 20 grand and then you keep doing that every year, every 6 months, you can buy another house. And I know people out there are like, how do you buy a house every 6 months? But trust me, you can do it. Especially if you keep your W-2 job, you got two people. If you grind it out for a few years, you can buy a house every 6 months. It's what my wife and I did. We freaking leveraged every single thing that we could. We put every dollar into it. We reduced our expenses for a long time so that we could buy these cash flowing assets. And if you do that, then you have so many more options. Once you feel that, then you understand you can say no to whatever your boss is asking you to do. You can say no to other things. You don't have to say yes to bad opportunities. You have more leverage as a person to go do what you want. You have more freedom to go do what you want. Like, even as an example, my wife, as we continue to grow, she negotiated more time off from her
Hmm.
job, right? But we didn't do the full like quit your job all at once. We sort of like weaned our employers off of us, or like we negotiated additional time freedom into our consulting gigs.
Yeah.
But I really do recommend, if there's anybody that's interested in like ever gaining fulfillment, because I think what we're really searching for is fulfillment and peace. You have to go through periods of work and you have to
Yeah.
go through periods of risk that you haven't done before. And everyone's risk tolerance is different. But if you want fulfillment, if you want peace, having additional income is one of the ways to do it. I'm not saying it buys you happiness. It creates options for you to go pursue what you want to pursue.
Totally. And so it's so interesting because I've been thinking a lot about this concept of sacrifice. Like I literally went on a hike on Sunday. I was like sitting on this mountaintop at 7 a.m. I'm like, people always say, like, oh, I don't want to sacrifice my lifestyle or I don't want to sacrifice this. But it's so interesting because even when I was in seasons of grind, I never thought of it as sacrifice, right? Like I always thought of it as me like buying my time back, me like buying my way into the life that I actually want to live. So if anything, I was sacrificing before by not doing the things that I needed to do to get to where I wanted to go, you know?
That's right. I think there's a famous Alex Hormozy quote where he says, if you're making $50,000 a year right now and you want to make $1 million a year, you're essentially paying $950,000 a year to not know how to make $1 million a year.
Yeah.
And that's the same thing with the work that you're willing or not willing to do. I think our greatest enemy is our comfort.
Yeah.
We are seeking peace and comfort and fulfillment. But if you're making like there's that 100 to 200K
Yeah.
range, it's really hard to want to do anything after that because you've kind of found where you wanted to go. You can go out to eat pretty much as you want. You've probably got a couple kids. You can generally afford the house that you want to live in, depending on where you live. Life is decent. Life is good.
Yeah.
You got what society said is what you wanted. It's hard to then say, I'm facing enough pain to go change because
Yeah.
that's where the word sacrifice comes in. It's there's not enough pain for me to want to then go change. But for me at my job, I went from being like an engineer, I moved into IT, moved into management, and then that's when things really got painful is because you see behind the curtain, you
Yeah.
see how decisions are made.
Like,
You
where are you
see
going in terms of your career? Is that something you really want to do?
Yeah, you start looking at the people above you, ahead of you, who you used to like say, "Oh, I'm going to have that job. I'm going to run the company." And you see that they're working longer hours still. They're out of shape. They're not healthy. They're drinking all the time. They're showing up. They're answering calls all the time because they feel like they're required to. They're not living the life that you or I desire for myself, especially once you see behind the curtain. And so I was in leadership and management. And so all the conversations started turning to like conflict conversations. It was
Mm,
just like, and for me, I love light energy. I love like curiosity. I love solving problems. I love all that stuff. And to be kind of inundated in middle management with all of these conflict conversations, I was like, what am I doing? Like, especially when you could tell that they weren't in alignment with what work needed to get done. It was
yeah.
very corporate and so I was like, I need to go find something different. And I don't even have time and space to think about what's next.
Yeah.
They I was in this cycle of getting up. Maybe I would go to the gym, maybe not, depending on how early my meetings were that day. Commute in, this is before remote work, commute in 8 to 10 hours at the office
Yep.
of back-to-back meetings, drive
That you don't
home.
actually get any work done on.
No, you don't get any work done, and everyone's just upset with you. No one likes what they're doing. Like, you
Yep.
had moments of, whatever. And then you go home, maybe have another meeting or two or call, like, because you got a call on the way home, make dinner, watch Netflix, go to bed, and do that all over again. And then the weekends, you're just trying to recover from the exhaustion of the week, or you're cramming stuff in because you missed out on all the time during the week. And so we needed to create space for ourselves, and that initially was why we quit our jobs and went and lived in our van for 6 months, was just to create space.
I love that. And so we're going to touch on like literally everything on how you get started in a little bit, but that's what I tell people all the time is I know so many people have these ideas like of what they want to do. They know that they were meant for more, but it's like they do not have the time and the space to think about that. Like what does that actually look like? And I did the same. It's like I quit my job because I was literally trying to like sign paperwork while I'm on like these oil and gas platforms in the middle of the Gulf of Mexico. I'm unable to sign anything because there is a firewall, like because it's just like oil and gas, very old school. I'm having my friend log into my Gmail that's not even like that's probably illegal, whatever, to sign these damn papers for me. And I was just like, this isn't it. I know it's not it. Right now, I'm just here because I feel like I need to, because I like had this idea that I needed to get to $10,000 a month in cash flow. And then I finally like looked up my numbers and I was like, okay, if I were to leave right now, how long can I survive? And what opportunities can this actually open me up to? And that's when I went like bulls to the wall. And then it was like a year of grinding. And I was like, okay, actually, I need a break. Like, I'm exhausted. So I like took off, went to Portugal, and just didn't speak to anyone essentially for 3 months, just did my own thing. And that's really where I figured out like, what I want this next season to look like. And that's like how the course and coaching program developed and all of that. But it was like finally having the time to take a step back and be like, wait, what do I actually want to do? Like, because even buying real estate, I love buying real estate, but I never really wanted 50, 100 doors. Like, I didn't care about that. I wanted freedom, which is exactly what I'd achieved. I was like, okay, cool. Like, I actually did what I really wanted to do with my real estate portfolio. I have the freedom now. I have time and space to think about what I really want to do. Do I want this next phase to look like? And for me, it was still acquiring properties and doing cool things with that. But I've always had like a deep desire in terms of like mentorship, helping young women, just like empower them. I'm like, what if I do this? But that would have never come up if I didn't have the space, you know?
Yeah, I'm in a season of no also, so saying no to things,
Yeah.
and it's a constant struggle,
Yep.
right? But there was a quote from my coach, Dan Martell. This was actually early on when I coached with him. He said, "If you want to accomplish all of your goals, your calendar needs to look 80% different than it does right now."
Mm,
And so, everyone out there, if you want something, and it's probably got to be big enough for this to be true, but actually, it's I think it's true no matter what. Your calendar, everything you're doing right now, look 6 months into the future. You should only be doing 20% of the stuff that you're doing right now. 80%
mhm,
of it needs to look very different if you're doing the things that are required of you to become the future version of yourself that is doing your dreams and achieving your dreams and goals. And it could be buying a short term rental or buying multiple short term rentals or full time real estate, whatever. 80% of your time needs to look different because the future version of yourself did what was required to go become that version of themselves. And if you don't change anything, nothing changes. Like, it's all basic fundamental things, but ultimately what it comes down to is you deciding to make a change in your life and then doing the small daily consistent actions to get to a place where you're actually doing that. And one of those things is creating space and saying no. And I honestly, that's like the first recommendation for anybody. Anybody is to just start saying no to everything, get comfortable with people being annoyed with you, and just sit with yourself. And
yeah.
there's a book, The Artist's Way. I talk about this a lot. If you've listened to my podcast, I talk about The Artist's Way a lot. And if you're a fan of Doechii, the rapper,
Love Dochi.
do you know about this story with
No,
The
I
Artist's Way?
don't.
She
Mm-mm.
was really struggling, and then she read The Artist's Way. It's about everyone is a creator.
Okay,
Everybody is
okay.
an artist. Everybody needs to create something, whatever our art is. And it's not just for artists, it's for entrepreneurs too. And so there's things to do in the book, like artist pages. It's basically daily journaling, but a kind of a its version. And then there's the artist date where you just go on a date with yourself every week. Don't and to go create art. Go sit down and charcoal draw or whatever. Like, but doing that just to create space for yourself. And so Dochi started reading this and she did every single exercise all the way through the book. And that is you can like pinpoint it to when she did that. And she talks about this to when everything just started skyrocketing because
Okay,
it
I
opened up
love
all the
that.
doors. Yeah.
I've just I've it's been on my list, but I haven't like, there's so many books on my list, but
Yeah.
I love that because right now I'm in a season of I've really been like focused on scaling and hiring different people for different parts of my business so that I can be more in the creative role because that's really where I flourish. Um and which is really exciting, and I'm even like having more folks help me with the content creation process. But what that means is like for the deep work that needs to happen for like the transformational content, it's like creating space for that. So I'm like, oh, this might be perfect time. I'm going to Italy next week, so
Yes.
maybe it's the book that I bring with me.
Yes, you should. You definitely should. You
Okay,
definitely should.
amazing. I'm gonna buy it on Amazon today.
Yeah, and it is a good, hardcover one to buy. I read a lot on Kindle, but it's a good hardcover one to buy, so
Amazing. Well, so Cassidy, take me back to you actually like starting in real estate investing, right? Because a lot of people, especially nowadays, right? Everything seems so expensive. It seems like nothing's working. How did you get started?
yeah, actually, I got started the way that I recommend anyone that has those same pain points or issues get started is we bought our primary and we house hacked it. So,
We love
we
house
didn't
hacking.
I I think house hacking, if you do it every year or every 2 years, it's the quickest, easiest, safest, most risk-free way to build wealth through real estate, especially if you have a bunch of engineers listening, a bunch of corporate people that don't wanna quit their jobs. Like, especially if you're in your 20s and you're gonna be moving anyways,
Yeah.
go buy good deals, make sure they're good deals, and go house hack. So us specifically, my wife and I, we ended up renting our spare bedroom on Airbnb. That was our version of house hacking. We didn't want to have a roommate necessarily. We were better and more equipped to do short-term rental. We were big travelers, right? And so it fit more with what we were doing. And this was back in the days when we only had one shower in the house. And so we had people coming in that were spare bedroom. We had to coordinate. They would come out and be like, "Hey, is it okay if I use the shower?" Yeah, yeah, it's cool. So this is like 2015.
Oh my gosh.
And don't let we bought in 2015. Don't let that stop you from thinking that you can afford something, right? At the time, that was still a stretch for us.
Mhm.
And since then we've sold it. We made a good amount of money on it. We rented it out various ways, but we rented our spare bedroom out for $35 a night. And that covered about 3/4 of our mortgage on average throughout the
Whoa,
year.
that's crazy though. Like renting out a bedroom covered 3/4 of your mortgage. That's
Well,
crazy.
but that I know, and that's why it all clicked for us. So we continued to kind of leverage that property as we traveled. We would rent it out midterm or even long term at some points, and then short term as we needed to. And so I would like house hack the crap out of your whatever properties, leverage and squeeze every ounce of money that you can out of every single property that you can, especially if you can increase the value and hold on to it. So from there, though, my wife and I, we learned everything about Airbnb. Like I was coming home on my lunch breaks to flip. We were doing the guest messaging. We were integrating the calendars. There was no guesty. There was no hospitable. There
Yeah.
was none of this stuff at all. There was a guy that had created an online web app that we used as our initial PMS. It was crazy.
Oh my
And
gosh.
yeah, these were like early days. And then everything grew and we learned more and more. And so then once we quit our jobs, which I don't recommend doing before you go buy real estate, it's easier if you have a job. But we bought in Cleveland, Ohio as our first like test case of can we do a short-term rental, full house
Mm. Why'd you
investment
pick
property?
Cleveland?
Yeah, it was basically a business decision. We looked at a
Okay.
lot of data of what was available. AirDNA did have data. And based on the price to revenue, that was our best bet. And it
Yeah.
was where we could afford at the time also. Like there was probably a couple other markets. A lot of people were going to Gatlinburg at the time,
Mhm.
which we decided not to. And I'm okay with that. Like Cleveland did really, really well for us. We got it up and running in uh 2 weeks.
Oh my
2
gosh.
weeks? Yeah, like 2 weeks. It was wild. We did a little light construction. We furnished everything. It was like a freaking whirlwind.
Yep.
And that property we bought for $277,000. We just sold for 450. And over the life of the property, the 5 years that we owned it, we made over $450,000 in cash
Amazing.
flow. And yeah. And so people always ask why Cleveland? It's like, well, it started really the whole thing. And we made 450 grand over 5 years and had a bunch of tax benefits from it.
Totally.
So don't let people tell you where or where not to invest. And that's what started everything. And from there, we bought an Airbnb every 6 months, and the price got bigger, the renovations got bigger, because I recognized that we wanted to maximize our equity and force appreciation on the properties. You don't want to furnish the heck out of something and have a ton of cash into it and have it be worth less or not as much as you put into it. So my engineer brain is like, well, I need to hedge against the downside.
Yeah.
So as long as we increase the value of the property at the same time that we're doing the short-term rental, that means that we could sell it and we're still going to make money on it. And that added a lot of work for us because we did bathrooms, we did pools, we did so much construction over the past 5-6 years, which was what ultimately burned us out, is just taking everything on ourselves and like going bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger without scaling up our team quick enough.
Totally. Well, and so because then you transitioned into boutique hotels. So I guess can you explain to me both the burnout part, because I think it is important to point out the burnout, right? Because a lot of people, especially on social media, will tout, I've got $50 and I've got $100 and I've got $1,000. And it's like, I remember being on that other rat race, right? Like where I'm like, okay, I'm trying to get to $50. I'm like, why? Why am I trying to get to $50 right now? What is the purpose? There's nothing wrong necessarily with the number, but it's so important to think about, why am I even doing this in the first place? You know?
Yeah, and in the end, a lot of it, because we were doing consulting at the same time, and so in the end, a lot of it came down to um, tax benefits, and that's
Yeah.
not really, and we made really good investment, but that's not really a great reason to continue to just invest in real estate, is to offset your taxes. And my recommendation is to buy. I would buy bigger,
Yes.
and as big as you can, so that you can make one decision about something that applies to more than one room or more than one property. I would focus in one area, which is what we ended up doing towards the end. Most of them are in Tucson, and that has economies of scale. So that's my advice, is like really focus on how can you scale and leverage your time, and then hire a team as quickly as possible. But the reason that I switched over to boutique hotels, and we have a hotel in Solvang, California, and even after buying that first one, I'm like, I need to go bigger because it's
Yeah.
24 units, but I want either higher ADR or higher room count to apply the economies of scale.
Yeah.
And so the reason around boutique hotels is, one, it's kind of the natural progression out of short-term rentals, design, amenities, architecture, hospitality, but you get forced appreciation. And forced appreciation in commercial real estate is just like tax benefits on short-term rentals is kind of the magic wand. On commercial real estate and boutique hotels, forced appreciation is kind of the magic wand. And the way that it works is, if you increase the income to the property, the overall income, the net income, you actually increase the overall value. And so there's a bunch of different ways you can do that with boutique hotels. But let's take one example. If you buy a boutique hotel that has a manager's unit, which is very common, a lot of these old boutique hotels, it's boomers that are retiring. They live on site, or the manager lives on site. And usually it's a bigger unit, it's like a house sometimes. And so if you can take that manager's unit, convert it to one or two rooms, hotel rooms, you haven't really added any expenses to the property. Some like very small amount of additional expenses. Obviously, you spent some money doing the renovations, but if you can bring in an additional $50,000 in net income, let's just use that number. You brought in an extra $50,000 in net income by converting that manager's unit to a hotel room. In an average market, you've actually increased the value of the property by $500,000
Yeah.
just by doing that, because they evaluate the value of the property on the income and not just the market, right? So with an Airbnb, and I think people should still go buy short-term rentals. Like, I think there's a lot of benefit to doing that if you're buying the right thing. But with an Airbnb, with a short-term rental, if you buy a $400,000 house in a $400,000 neighborhood, that house is worth $400,000 based on all the comps around it. You could put 200 grand into it. It could be making $1 million a year, and it's still worth $400,000.
Yeah.
Versus the hotel, if you make all these improvements. Also, let's say there's three room types: standard king, double queen, and a suite. You make three decisions. You design three rooms, and that applies to 20, 30, 40 rooms, right? Now, there's other complexities. You need a team. Like, you don't really want to do this on your own, but you got to raise money usually, like all that stuff. Like, there's other things to learn and get good at. But in terms of the financials and how to make money, it's a relatively more straightforward proposition. You're not dealing with zoning issues where the neighbors can shut you down or the state can shut you down. People want you in the neighborhood, right? So
Yeah.
again, I'm not telling, because I know that a lot of people invest in short-term rentals that listen to this. I'm not saying don't do that, but if you want to really go to the next level and if you want to have economies of scale, and actually grow your wealth a little bit faster, then boutique hotels are a really good option to be able to do that.
Yeah. And I think the big thing too as well is so many boutique hotels are currently owned by like mom and pops, like boomer generation. They're kind of getting over it and rid of it and ready to retire. So it's also finding like there are still so many hotels that don't have a proper like property management system, and they very much run like an old school hotel. So even just that value you can add to increase income coming to the property. So that's always been like something that's top of mind for me as well, is like that's such an easy fix, especially with the technology that we have access to now.
Yeah, and adding self check-in, making sure that
Mhm.
they're on all the OTAs, meaning hotels.com and Expedia. Like a lot of hotels are still not on there or on
Yeah.
all of them because they don't have the right PMS. Like you said, the great thing about commercial real estate and boomers retiring is that they're willing to do like seller financing. And
Mhm.
so it's starting to become a little more common on the residential side, but very common on the commercial side, where it's a benefit to the seller to do seller financing because they don't have to pay as much in taxes if you set it up right. Like, so instead of them getting all of the proceeds, so if you sell the hotel for 2 million and they get $2 million, they got to pay taxes on 2 million. If you do seller financing, they only have to pay taxes on basically the down payment that you give them, and then they get a monthly check, right? Like a retirement check. And then at some point you pay them out the full amount, but usually they're very open to it and you can get better terms. And so it's a win-win for everybody. And so there's just a lot more levers that you can pull to like create a deal and structure a deal and like create wealth for yourself and others.
Totally. And so you talk a lot about the velocity of money. So can you explain what the velocity of money even is? Because, most engineers or science people, they're like, velocity of, like, I know what velocity is. Well, what do you
Right.
mean in terms of money?
Yeah. So the way that I define velocity of money is how quickly you can multiply your money. And with boutique hotels, I think you can double your money and you should target to double your money every 3 years. That's a good
Mhm.
target. And the way with velocity of money, there's four accelerators that I talk about with the velocity of money. So the first one is leverage. Leverage is debt. Leverage is how we buy real estate. So this is true for all assets, but with commercial real estate, with any real estate, being able to buy 100% of an asset for a percentage of the price is a huge benefit when it produces income and when it grows in value for you, because the second accelerator is forced appreciation, like I talked about before. These two together, these two accelerators are really what generate real wealth in real estate. Cash flow is the lowest value investment return on real estate. If you did the math on a boutique hotel, even a short term rental, and you add up where you got all your money from, the majority of the money that you made will be from taking the debt and then increasing the value of the property through forced
Yeah.
appreciation, because the entire asset appreciates, but you only put 10 to 20% of the value down. And so let's say you put 100K down and it goes up $1 million in value, you get the whole million on top of your 100K. So forced appreciation and leverage, that is what creates wealth in real estate, hands down, far and above cash flow. So
Yeah.
the third accelerator in the velocity of money is equity. And I like to say free equity, because if you learn how to raise money, you essentially get free equity into a property, right? If you go out and you raise money for something, you don't have to put all of your money or as much money into a deal, right? You get to keep your cash in the bank account. You go raise money for a deal, and then you get equity in that deal for raising money or as part of raising money. And so you're getting free equity without having to actually put cash in. That's an infinite return. So
Yeah.
free equity is another accelerator. And then the final fourth benefit is the tax benefits, which is cost segregation, depreciation, and being able to offset your income. And commercial real estate, Airbnbs, we all do it. So those are the four accelerators of velocity and money. All of those combined through commercial real estate is really what can increase your wealth the fastest.
Okay, I love this. And so let's do a little bit of role playing here. Like let's say I'm coming to you as a bright and bushy-eyed engineer. I'm making about 160K a year and I have no idea where to start. Maybe I live somewhere like Seattle, right? Where it's like pretty high cost of living. What do I do, right? Because I start looking at properties and things are $900,000 or $1 million. And I'm like, oh my gosh, does it make sense to house hack here? Does it make sense to buy an investment property? Does it make sense to buy something in Cleveland? What should I do?
I think, well, first I need to understand what your goals are,
Okay.
right?
Hmm.
Do you want to quit your job? Do you need cash flow, or are you looking for maximum wealth building activities?
Okay. Let's say I know that in 5 years, I would like to not be working my job.
You would like to not be working your job.
Yes, I would like to be work optional. Maybe I'm thinking like in the future, either I want to have kids or maybe I want to go travel for a year or two. So I want to give myself options for the future in about five
Uh,
years.
okay, I'm going to give you there's basically two routes that I
Mm.
see. And I'm going to give you the first one that is, I think, the most common that you would hear, and that's go buy cash flowing assets.
Yeah.
And that would be go buy a short-term rental in a state where, one, either you could afford or you can partner with somebody, and you can maximize the value of the property as well as the cash flow. And so someone that does a really great job at this is Michael Elefante.
Yeah.
He goes and finds 600 to $900,000 properties. He improves them, he doubles their value or more, and they cash flow 200 to 400K. That doesn't need to be your first one. So if you're in the Seattle area, I would go Cle Elum, Vashon, Whidbey, Orcas Island, San Juan Island, something with water. Leavenworth is another really good one. Those are the markets that I would look in, and you'll likely need to partner, and you just need to ensure that you can cash flow on the asset and get a second home loan
Yeah.
and not necessarily an investor loan if you can find a second home loan. So, and then do that.
And so why a second home loan? I mean, I know why, but
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Thank you. Second home loan, one, it's easier to get. Two, you can put as low as 10% down on the property. So you're spending less cash down on the property versus an investor loan. Right now, they're probably 25%, at least 20% for investor loans. So you want to be able to put as little cash down on the property as possible, as long as it still cash flows. It's okay to put more, but a real estate investor knows that the more cash that they have, the more real estate they can go buy.
yes.
So that's the first option. The second option is actually, I think, a better strategy that a lot of people don't talk about. It just takes a reframe. Let's take the Seattle area. I'm in Kirkland. That's a really high cost of living, expensive, nice area. Bellevue, Kirkland, Redmond, Woodinville, and Fremont, Ballard in Seattle. These other neighborhoods in Seattle. I would go buy either a primary, or if you could, again, get a second home loan in the area, or an investor loan, that's fine. Find the highest cost of living neighborhood. Find the best street with the best zip code that these houses continue to go up and up and up, and put as little cash down as you can, fix it up, and then hold it for 5 years as a short-term rental. Maybe you cash flow, maybe you don't.
Yeah.
And then after the 5 years, I bet you the value of that property has more than made up for any cash flow that you would have gotten on a different property.
Completely. I mean, I literally like my friends, they're in Seattle right now and they were sending me like newer construction and like I'm like, "Girl, no, no, no. Go for a value add in that area." Like would be I mean, double check the numbers. Also don't go for an older property that's the same price as the newer properties. That doesn't make sense. So you want to see where the like value add portion actually is, cuz you sit on that for a few years, you're set. Like,
Yeah, because I think the best strategy for regular people is essentially do a luxury flip
yeah.
in the highest cost of living neighborhood in your area, because then you're close by. I know people want to be close to their real estate. You can do it. But if you go do a luxury flip and turn it into an Airbnb, you get all that velocity of money stuff I just talked about. That is a velocity of money strategy, because you're getting all the benefits. The only thing you don't get is the income valuation, but you're forcing appreciation in a high cost of living. So essentially you're valuing your time and your money more by buying in a more expensive area, because, let's say every dollar you put into it, you're going to get three out.
Yeah.
If you go into the Midwest, every dollar you put into a property, you might get $1
One
out,
yeah.
right? You're not like, there's no appreciation there. So, and if you add up the cash flow versus appreciation when you're taking debt on a property, this is a strategy to build wealth. And so the trick is, so let's say you're breaking even as an Airbnb in this strategy. You spend 100 grand in renovations. After 5 years, it's worth 500 grand more than it was, but you didn't make any cash flow. So you're going to net 400K on your investment.
Yeah.
You need to decide, well, and you got all the tax benefits too, but you need to decide if you can live off of a chunk of money, right? So this is the difference that people, it's like, okay, do I need the cash flow or do I want more money? And
Yeah.
I just need to be good about living off of savings, or, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, completely.
yes. Yeah.
Well, and it's like, so I actually have a student though. So she's in Seattle. She was living in New York, spending $4,000 a month in rent. And I was like, what are you doing? You want to travel, you want to do these other things. So she actually ended up buying a rundown single family home in Seattle, like super close to the train line, really good location. She's currently still converting it into a triplex, like one that can still be a single family home, but it has the ability to be a triplex as well. She's going to live in like the smallest unit that's really cute, rent out the other units so she still has the cash flow coming in. She's not going to be like living for free, but instead of paying $4,000 a month in rent, now her expenses are like 1,500, which is huge.
Yep.
And then she's also forcing appreciation because she ended up doing like a gut renovation on this property. So she bought it for like 900 something, but it's even like with the minor renovations that she did, it was already at like 1.3 or something like that. And I was like, girl, this is gonna be a steal.
Exactly. Yeah, and so like you said, value add is really, it's the only way I invest is value add, and that could be development, but knowing your regulations and knowing your rules and knowing where the demand is. So like right now in Seattle, the biggest demand is for housing, affordable housing.
Yeah.
And one of the things that the state has done, just like California and San Diego specifically, they have allowed you to put ADUs on the property up to 1,200 to 1,300 square feet, and a lot of these ADUs are, they're like little mini houses. They're
Yeah.
3 bedroom, 2 bath with a garage ADUs. And so,
What? That's
yeah,
pretty insane.
yes. And they're great. They're great, especially for like a starter home. But
Yeah.
here's the kicker is the state allows you to basically what's called condoizing these properties. So you can split the parcel very easily, and each of these ADUs and the house are separate. So I think you can have three structures in Seattle, like without any rezoning changes or rezoning laws, and you can build these for 350 to 450 each, and they're worth between 650 to 750 each immediately, and they can rent for $3,000 to $4,000. So the 1% rule actually works in Seattle, which is nuts, but only with this ADU stuff. Which this is from Thatch when he's up here. This is what he's doing,
Yeah.
and then and same thing down in San Diego.
Yeah.
So as real estate investors, there are like quote unquote fads that come and go and things, but right now I think value add for ADU and affordable housing conversion from a single family to triplex, fourplex, there's stuff called pad split.
Yep.
The verdict for me is still out on that, because you're creating multifamily in a non-multifamily area, and I think they're going to go through the same troubles that Airbnb went through, where the neighbors are going to hate it, there's going to be
Too many
issues.
cars and people and yeah.
Exactly, and it's just not something that I'm that interested in. I would rather do the ADU play and do
Yeah, same.
development and big value add, or go find people that are doing it and invest with them. So
Yeah, I know. And it's not to say that it's a bad strategy. I know a lot of people doing it successfully in the like co-living situation. It's just a lot of personalities that are completely different people who don't know people in the same space. That to be said, there are ways to do it. I know so many people doing it well. I'm helping people do it well. But I personally, especially as someone who's now 30 years old and has a dog who doesn't like other people, like strangers right off the bat, I'm like,
yeah.
I need my own separate unit. Oh my goodness. And
Well,
so
and
yeah,
that's the thing with real estate, real quick. That's the thing with real estate is your investment strategy will change as your lifestyle changes.
yeah,
So like for me, we're probably going to go buy one short-term rental a year. My wife has a design business. She's doing a bunch of stuff around design, and that's what she loves. So that supports that, but it also is the easiest way to offset taxes. We'll continue to invest in hotels. I'll probably take on one project a year or one every other year and then invest in other people's projects,
yep.
which is different than just taking all of our money and being an active investor all the time, right? So
I know I've invested in my first syndication last year. So
congrats,
thank
congrats.
you. Thank you. I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
passive.
Yeah, and I
Oh,
hope it is passive, and I hope the
I
returns are
mean,
there.
we'll see.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
like money sitting in like my solo 401k that I couldn't invest in my own thing anyway. So I'm like, throw it in there. I don't really care. So
Yeah, and that was the other thing I did that I haven't talked about much is that I cashed out my 401k and I did it
Mm,
strategically. I didn't cash everything out all at once. So when I quit my job, I moved it all into a self-directed IRA,
yeah.
and so that sat there, and then as we needed stuff, we would use it for the down payments, and then we would
Mm,
use cash for the renovations, and then we would just pay the fee on whatever we withdrew that year. So we basically did 2 withdrawals a year for like 4 or 5 years using my 401k money.
that's
And that
amazing.
yeah, and I know people have a hard time with that. They're like, "Oh, well, you're paying the fee." I was like, "Well, yeah, but just add it into as an expense on the overall return." Like, I don't get what the issue is.
Totally, totally. And I mean, I always tell people, like, especially if they are feeling weird about that, start with just doing a 401k loan, right? Because there's no fees, there's no penalties. I remember, like, at the time, obviously, interest rates were 2.75%, and my interest rate on that is 3%. And I still have it to this day. It's $100 a month. I'm like, "Pfft, that's easy. You know, it's like
Easy.
kind of like when people get so caught up about PMI, and I'm like, do you care about PMI if you're cash flowing $500 or $1,000 or multiple thousand? No, no, you don't care.
Society has taught us to just be penny pinchers to the max
Yeah.
and fight every fee, fight every like you can't let them make money, you can't let them get but like run your own numbers, understand that it's the cost of doing business, figure out where you want to put your energy. I used to fight every little dollar, every little cent. And that was part of the burnout was
Yeah.
I was fighting every fight. And it also caused like me to not get the best people to work with me because I wasn't the best person working with other people, and I see that now, and my advice is to, like, pick where you wanna spend your energy and, like, what's the most important part about what you're doing, and usually it's, like, finding the best people and getting the job done.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
whatever helps you to get the job done so that you can start making money on your properties, is
Totally. And even in entrepreneurship in general and in business, it's something I'm always constantly learning too, because it's like, especially when you're like trying to scale a business, expenses start going up. It's easy to start penny pinching. But for me, it's always like, I don't necessarily care about how much it is. It depends on the ROI I'm getting and the people that I'm working with and how like good they can get the job done. How much do we enjoy each other's presence because we're going to be spending a lot of time together. Because that is where the big ROI is going to come from, and that's going to show in your numbers down the line as well.
Yeah, you have to play the long game with everything.
Yeah,
Like, if you're playing the short game, you're not gonna be happy. You're gonna
yeah,
be frustrated. You're gonna have people cycling in and out of your life constantly. The It's gonna feel like the sky is falling all the time because every surprise bill or every this or every that or the letter from the IRS or whatever it is gonna feel like another battle that you have to fight. When in reality, you have to decide where you want to spend your energy and understand that it's always about the long game. The longer that you can play the long game, the better life you will have, like for real.
totally. And so we're about to head into the final three interview questions, but one last question for you before we do that is, what do you feel has really allowed for your success over the last like 10 years?
I default to taking action
Hmm.
and being decisive.
Yeah.
So I don't get caught up in analysis paralysis. I definitely do. Like I run numbers and, but having faith in yourself and having trust in yourself and your ability to get it done. And I think you said it earlier, like there's so many people that have done this before me and I'm pretty smart. I'm pretty talented. Like I can go do this. I can go figure this out. Right.
Yeah.
And the other thing is when you ask people like what their worst case scenario is about doing something, they say a lot of times they say, "Well, I could just go back to my job." So you're telling me your worst case scenario is what you're currently living right now.
Yeah.
And so you're going to be building a muscle every single day, one way or the other. Are you building the muscle that you want to build or are you building the muscle for somebody else, right? And so you have a choice every single day to go and do the thing that you want to do. And the only difference between what you want and where you are is you just doing the stuff that's required to go do it.
Yeah. Completely, and, honestly, that was one of the quotes that got me to finally just, like, believe in myself. It was someone saying that, if your worst case scenario is what you're currently doing, and it's like, "Holy crap, you're right!"
I
Like,
think
I'm
that might have been
living
you
the
that
worst
I got
case
that from.
scenario right now.
Yeah, I'm living my worst case scenario right now. Oh, shit.
Yeah,
Okay.
like, maybe I should change things.
Yeah, it's all fear-based, it's all
Yeah,
excuses, it's all it takes uh, the other thing I was doing, so here I'll give you just some more insight into that question. I think it's a great question because it's not, yes, I took action. It's not, oh, I looked for the highest ROI. I did it. No, it's I did all the work on myself and I kept improving myself. I was emotionally aware. So a lot of times not, but
yeah,
then became emotionally intelligent, focused on myself. I really focused on myself and stopped focusing on everybody else. And what that looks like is not having codependency in your relationship, not complaining about others, not commenting on other people, not commenting on what everyone else is doing, not comparing yourself, only focusing on myself and my joy, my happiness, my actions, my habits, and taking extreme ownership of every single thing. Not shaming myself, not degrading myself, not none of that, but really being just radically honest with myself and taking responsibility for every situation that I'm in, the people that I hired, the way things turn out, and just being okay, being present, being grateful. And that all came essentially through therapy and business coaching and like surrounding myself with great people and not doing it all on my own now.
yes.
Yeah.
Huge, huge. And it's crazy because for everything that I do, if I want to change my situation, I'm always looking at who can I surround myself with that's going to get me there. Like I have a coach for my coaching program, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And he like literally one of the best investments I've ever made. Like a pretty penny, I will say, but truly one of the best investments I ever made. Like I sent a message to them earlier today being like, this has honestly been so life changing and just surrounding myself with other people who are just like me doing bigger things, pushing themselves, just the learning, the growth, and like knowing that it's part of it is just a different state of mind that you have to learn to adopt as well. So, like, being in that state of mind has always been so huge for me, but it's so hard to do that when you're not surrounding yourself with people in that state of mind.
As entrepreneurs, we think we're on our own a
Yeah.
lot, all the time. And so when you finally hire a coach, and if it's a group coach or there's a group component, you're like, oh my God, there's other people like me.
Yeah.
And that was a big, like when I hired Dan Martell, and again, it was a pretty penny. And then when I also had Rich Summers, he's my real estate specific. It was like, oh my God, like there's other people like me out there. I am not unique. I'm not special, which feels good actually. Like it feels like my problems can be solved and that it's not like the end of the world. And so whatever stage of your journey that you're in out there, you're not alone. Like there are people out there. Go find a coach, a mentor, whoever's doing something that you want to do, go pay them to teach you how to do it. Like that's honestly another secret, and I didn't figure that out until the last, like, 2 years. Go pay people to teach you what they know and
Yeah.
accelerate your learning, especially out in the entrepreneurship world, right?
Yeah.
In the corporate engineer world, you have built-in peer review and leadership structures and mentors. A lot of corporate places pay for training, and you
Mhm.
have a lot of that all built in. It's just contained in this existing structure. When you're an entrepreneur, you have to realize and figure out that you don't know something, and you have to be willing to invest your own time and money and energy into going and doing that. In the corporate world, you don't got to put your own money. All you got to do is show up and you get a free lunch, and right, that's it.
Yeah.
But
Well,
if you
and
want
it's
real change for yourself, sorry, go ahead.
It's so funny because even some of my, like, students, they get, like, an education fund or whatever at their job, so they'll use the coaching as, like, part of their education
Yeah.
fund.
Yeah. I mean, that's something that I would do. That's a good
Yeah,
move.
same.
That's a good move.
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh. Well, Cassidy, it's time to get into the 3 final interview questions, and I know there's, like, literally so much more we could talk about in terms of, like, nomading and van life, but we'll have to do another podcast episode later down the line.
Yeah.
But number 1, what does your ideal perfect day look like?
Great question. I have a routine. I have habits that I love. So getting up, going on a walk first thing, and if there's sunlight, that's great. Be having my latte, making my latte, reading 10 pages,
Mhm.
reaching out to people with gratitude texts. So
Oh,
like,
love that.
yeah, the connection stuff and like because doing all those things that I just said right there means that I have created space for myself.
Mhm.
So that's like number one. And then gym in the morning, like always. If I don't go to the gym in the morning, it's really tough to go in the afternoon. And then being able to have great food throughout the day, having a component of sauna, cold plunge somewhere in the week. I know it's not every day. Having lunch or dinner with friend, family, colleague, like being able to connect with people, having a couple calls, and then recording podcasts and talking to you,
I love it.
and
No,
then
but
going to
really,
bed at
it
like
sounds very
8:30,
ideal.
9.
It's crazy because you actually can create that life for yourself.
Yeah, and I know that doesn't sound so crazy, but like basically creating the space for myself and doing the things that I enjoy doing.
Yeah,
And then, of course, there's travel and things that I want to do and all that. So there's different perfect days or perfect weeks, but that
totally.
if I had to pick that, that would be what I would do every day.
I love it. Okay, question number 2. What's your mantra or just something you tell yourself over and over again?
Oh, do it for yourself. Be proud of yourself. Those are mantras. I'm gonna pull out because I keep it in
I
my room,
love that. I mean, it's key. Keep it, like, high
and
and
it's
bright.
pinned to the
Ah,
top. See, it says mantras.
amazing.
Yeah. Make it a habit, not a question. So that
Ooh, I like that.
make it a habit, not a question. So don't wake up asking yourself, "Are you going to go to the gym today?"
Mhm.
Make it a habit, so you're not even asking yourself the question. It's part of your identity. So that's a big one, and that's one I think that resonates with a lot of people that follow me because I post that on my gym selfies. So.
No, that is a really good one because I mean, part of why like I made a podcast episode about this last year, but like I was really struggling with working out. I've always been just kind of a solo worker outer person. Like maybe I'll have a gym buddy, but I've been very self-motivated. But I was just hitting a wall last year and I was moving and all this stuff and I just could not get myself to actually work out at the gym. And I would sit in my car and just like be on my phone doing work, right? And like finding whatever excuse and then I'm throwing in a terrible workout. So I ended up signing up for a gym with like lifting workout classes. It's 7 a.m. every single morning. You get charged if you miss it. So even on the days where I'm like, no part of me wants to go, it's on my calendar, can't miss it. If I do, there's a penalty, and I just like hate like losing money for stupid things, so forces
That's
me to
right.
go.
Yeah, and we have to do the things that are required to make us go do that stuff. Whatever's going to hold us accountable, you need to go do that, right? I'm learning right now. I'm in the cut right now. I'm losing weight so that I can then turn around and go bulk up. And this is the first time I'm doing something. I signed up for a program. I realized that I've never really given 100% to anything in
Mm,
my life. Truly commit to getting down to my goal weight so that I can then turn around requires 100% effort and doing every single thing that's required of me to get to that weight. And that is a real mental lesson. And so my advice to people is like do the things that will hold you accountable. Get an accountability partner. Be crazy. Be so weird with like your habits and like creating accountability for yourself so that you can actually do the thing that you want to do. Otherwise it's not going to happen.
totally. Okay, last question. What does wealth mean to you?
Wealth means freedom. Freedom of mind, like to not have rumination, to not have overthinking, overanalysis, worry, to have freedom of mind and freedom of time. I think that to me is like what I'm seeking and what we're all really seeking. The wealth and money component provides some of that, but the entrepreneur's journey or the wealth building journey is actually the greatest self improvement journey that you can go on because it requires you to really look at yourself and face yourself and say, what do I truly want and what am I truly willing to give?
Yeah.
And what am I actually after? And then doing the things that are required to go get that. And I think I've been on that journey and still on that journey. So,
I mean, I think it's always gonna be a never-ending journey, which is great, which is a beautiful thing because there are levels to it. Well, Cassidy, this has been absolutely amazing. Where can people find you, listen to your podcast?
Yeah, my podcast is called For Your Own Good. It's on YouTube. You have to search my name, Cassidy Warren, but it's For Your Own Good. It's on Apple. It's on Spotify. Some amazing interviews. You were on there. And then my Instagram is at Cassidy.Warren, and that's Cassidy with a K. I'm posting there all the time. And I would love if everybody just followed me, subscribed on YouTube. That'd be a ton of fun.
Amazing. Well, this has been awesome, Cassidy. We'll definitely have to have you come on again because I feel like there's a whole other side of just like travel, nomading, all of this stuff that we didn't even scratch the surface on yet.
Yeah, Olivia, thank you so much. This has been so great. I loved our interview. I love learning about you. Host to Level Up Your Listing. You're just doing so
Yeah.
much cool stuff and providing a ton
I'm
of value
tired. I'm
to
honestly
people.
tired. We're cutting down this year on
Yeah,
things that we're doing.
that's right. Yeah, do less, but do them better.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, Olivia.
Thank you so much for listening to Wanderlust Wealth Show. Now, don't forget to follow the podcast, or if you're watching on YouTube, make sure to hit that subscribe button. If you love this episode, it would literally mean the world to me if you shared this with a friend or a family member, or literally like anyone off of the street. Like right now, go ahead, share it so you don't forget, or post it on social media and make sure to tag me. I love seeing what you're listening in on and what you resonated with, and I'm just so freaking thankful for you. I'm so freaking excited for you. I love you, and don't forget, life really doesn't have to be hard.